When we see the haka, we're seeing this incredible display of passion and raw strength. But behind those powerful movements, there's a history stretching back 700 years, a history of one of the most sophisticated warrior cultures in the South Pacific. So in this explainer, we're going to go beyond the surface and uncover a story of engineering, of spirit, and of defiance that actually challenged an empire. Let's get into this remarkable history. This line, written by a British soldier, really gets to the very heart of the Maori warrior ethos. You see, it wasn't just about survival, it was about honor. This kind of profound respect from their adversaries, well, it really sets the stage for understanding a culture that saw combat not as some last resort, but as a central, vital part of life and prestige. So let's go back a bit, way before the first European ships arrived. In Aotearoa, which you might know as New Zealand, warfare was a constant feature of life. But it's so important to understand this. It wasn't just chaos. It was a state of highly ritualized conflict, and it is all governed by a very strict and sophisticated spiritual and social code. And right at the center of this code, you have the concept of mana. Now, the best way to think of mana is as a mix of prestige, spiritual power, and authority all rolled into one. It was the absolute core of a person's and a tribe's identity, and one of the main ways to increase your mana, victory in battle. So conflict was deeply, fundamentally tied to social and spiritual advancement. So what was the engine that drove all this action? Well, it was a principle called Ubuntu. Ubuntu is all about reciprocity, about restoring balance. If a tribe was insulted or slighted, Ubuntu demanded a response of equal measure to bring things back into equilibrium and restore honor. This could mean a gift for a gift or a raid for an insult. It was like a cosmic law that kept the wheels of society and conflict turning. And this brings us to the ultimate warrior, the Toa. Now, a Toa was so much more than just a fighter. No, they were expected to be masters of multiple disciplines. A Toa had to be a poet, an orator, a strategist, and of course, a lethal combatant. You see, warfare itself was considered a high art form, something that demanded not just raw physical strength, but also intellectual and spiritual skill. But this entire complex society was on a collision course with its greatest challenge yet. When the British arrived with their cannons and their muskets, they fully expected a quick victory over what they considered a primitive people, while they were about to be proven profoundly wrong by an absolutely incredible display of military engineering. The Māori developed these fortified villages, called pa, with truly revolutionary anti-artillery designs. What's so amazing about these features is how they were specifically designed to counter European technology. You had layers of flax padding on the fences that acted like a kind of 19th century Kevlar, just absorbing the impact of cannonballs. Deep bunkers let warriors wait out bombardments in total safety. And a whole network of trenches and tunnels allowed them to move around completely unseen. And the effectiveness of these designs was, well, it was staggering. We have military records from British officers where they just expressed complete and utter bewilderment. They would shell a paw for hours, sometimes for days, and when they finally stormed the fortress, they'd find it deserted. The Maori warriors had just vanished through hidden escape tunnels to fight another day on their own terms. So here's the crucial point, the thing that is just mind-blowing. Decades before the trenches of the Western Front in World War I became infamous, the Māori had independently developed and perfected the core principles of modern trench warfare. It was a stunning innovation, born out of necessity and sheer brilliance. Of course, the arrival of Europeans didn't just bring cannons, it brought muskets, and the introduction of firearms would dramatically and violently escalate intertribal warfare. Ultimately, it set the stage for a new, much larger conflict with the British Crown itself. This timeline really shows how quickly the situation escalated. In the early 1800s, you have the Musket Wars, where tribes that got firearms first gained a massive advantage, which led to widespread destabilization. So, in an attempt to bring some order, the Treaty of Waitangi was signed in 1840. But instead of peace, it sparked the New Zealand Wars, a conflict over land and sovereignty that would rage for the next 30 years. And this comparison right here, this gets to the very heart of the problem. The treaty was fundamentally misunderstood because the two versions said two very different things. The English version said that Maori leaders ceded sovereignty, but the Maori version used the word kawanantana, which meant governorship, while explicitly guaranteeing that they would retain their tino rangatiratana, their absolute chieftainship. This wasn't just a simple mistranslation. It was a clash of entire worldviews that made war almost inevitable. But here's the thing. The warrior spirit, the spirit of the Toa, it didn't just die out when the New Zealand Wars ended. It adapted, and in the 20th century, it would reemerge on the world stage with incredible force. This number, 28th, this represents the 28th Māori Battalion of World War II. This unit was made up entirely of volunteers, and they became one of the most decorated and feared infantry units in the entire Allied forces, fighting with incredible distinction in North Africa and Europe. You really don't get a stronger testament to a warrior's reputation than when you get high praise from your enemy. This quote, it's attributed to the formidable German general Erwin Rommel, and it just speaks volumes. The fighting prowess of the Maori warrior was recognized and respected at the very highest levels, generations after the wars for their own land had ended. And this brings us full circle, right back to the haka. You see, it's not just a pregame ritual, it is a direct, living bridge to this ancestral warrior energy. When they chant, kamate, kamate, kaora, kaora, I die, I live, it is this incredibly powerful declaration of life in the face of death, a statement of presence and defiance that echoes through the centuries. So this history of the Māori warrior is one of incredible adaptation and resilience, from the spiritual code of mana and uchu to the engineering genius of the pa. It's the story of a people who met a global empire on their own terms. And that brings us to a really fascinating question about that legacy today. Looking at its most famous expression, the haka, on the world stage of sports, does that sanitize it, diminish its deep historical meaning, or does it actually serve as the most powerful way to keep that incredible warrior history alive for